Hello all, this is George and Gail. We're here for doing our first ever video log, and we're going to talk about things that interest us and hopefully you. I'll get right to it if you don't mind. This morning as we were getting ready for church, I received an email from a friend, actually from Romphea. It's a traditionalist Greek website. And what happened is that yesterday, I believe, there was an ordination in Limassol, Cyprus, and a new bishop was ordained. One of the bishops who was there was Metropolitan Athanasius of Limassol, and to not put too fine of a point on it, he left in the middle of the ordination service.
Well, tell him why.
And I'll tell you why. Yes, dear. During the litany, when they commemorate all the patriarchs and metropolitans of the autocephalous churches, beginning with Bartholomew, they ended with so-called Metropolitan Epiphany Domenko of Kiev.
He was in the diptychs.
He was in the diptychs. He was announced. Well, I guess it said several minutes later, I guess Metropolitan Athanasius had to let it sink in. He realized that in a de facto sort of way, his church, the Church of Cyprus, had recognized Epiphany Domenko, Michael Domenko, his real name, as a legitimate metropolitan of a legitimate Orthodox church, and he would have none of it, and he stormed out of the church. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over a little bit now to Gail to talk about the significance of this. There are several layers of this, but Metropolitan Athanasius is a significant person.
He is a significant person. And as George says, there are many layers to this.
Yes.
And I got to tell you, George knows so much more than I do about so many things. But the reason this particular man is so important to me is when I was coming into the church, I read a book, The Mountain of Silence, and later followed by a sequel called The Gifts of the Desert, and it was written by a sociologist. So it kind of resonated with me. It wasn't too orthodox because I really didn't know what the faith was, and I know it was calling me, but I didn't know why, or I really didn't know too much about the church. I read Timothy Ware's book, but that was way over my head. So I really loved these books, and I particularly loved a character, a man, who was known as Father Maximus. And the reason I did, and by the way, he is the
Metropolitan Athanasius.
Yes, the same very one that walked out during the diptychs. Is that how you pronounce it?
During the diptychs,
yes,
right, exactly.
This morning. So the reason this man impressed me so much is through this dialogue with the author of these books, who, again, was a sociologist. He opened me up to a way of looking at the church from a totally different point of view than I got in catechism classes, because it was
absolutely,
certainly
absolutely.
much more. It wasn't about the
It opened
church.
my mind too. I mean, it really did.
Well, it's not even the mind. See, this is the thing: is you know, as you spend time in the church, that there's a different way of perceiving. And this is my first encounter with the idea of a nous, that there's a part of me that would be opened up through my being in the church that would help me see everything differently. It's why one would say you intuitively understand, which I would intuitively understand the Holy Fathers, even though I've never been exposed to them. It is this other part of me that apparently came when they sent out the package known as Gail Shepherd. I was equipped with this ability, and I had no idea that I even had it or how to use it. And so this was my first exposure to it. And I've been in the church now a while, and I've learned that these people are few and far between.
They are.
And I've learned, too, that in addition to the Holy Fathers, I need to pay attention to who these people are.
Absolutely.
Because I need to know what direction I need to be going, and I need to know how I'm supposed to feel about these things. I can't just say, oh, that's their level, that's them, that's not me. Because honestly, me, Gail Shepherd, George Michaelopoulos, you we are the church too.
Yes, we are.
And it's an organic body. We're a living, breathing part of the church. It changes us. We change it. So it's not about personalities.
No,
I may have opinions about somebody's personalities, but that's not what's driving me. What's driving me with respect to everything George and I do is the fact that I love the church. And it's beyond the people in the church. It is this pristine body of God. And I cannot not defend it any more than I could not defend my children. I would stand between my children and whatever harmed them, no hesitation. And if I seem a bit intense, that's why.
That's right.
And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think we're all called to do this. So
I agree. In fact, just so you know, this is the book we're referencing, Gifts of the Desert. The other one is Mountain of Silence. It's by Kyriakos Markides. I highly recommend reading this. I either one. And Father Maxime, as he's called, or Father Maximus, is a pseudonym for then Father Athanasius, who now is Metropolitan Athanasius of Limassol. And the man is a giant in Orthodox spirituality. I mean, just read the books yourself, you'll see, and it's going on. So the thing is, though, the fact that, again, when I was getting dressed, like everybody else, I scrolled through my phone and I saw this thing. And I said, oh my God. And I said, Gail, do you understand what this is all about? And it was a very bad translation, but I figured it out what it was.
And when you have somebody of that caliber, somebody that I pay attention to,
yes.
When you have him walking out of a surface, I'm going to pay attention.
Yeah.
I'm going to see what he's at. And
yeah.
The reason this particular action got my attention was it's over something that I literally suffer from, church PTSD. I do, but Ukraine is it has to do with Ukraine. I am never going to get over it.
Yeah.
It upset me so much,
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're going to want to add to this.
Well,
Ukraine
was a bridge too far.
Yeah, it certainly was.
Okay, the papalism, the uncanonical nature of the recognition of this schismatic sect, which is not even made up of validly ordained bishops or priests, but charlatans, ordained, hastily ordained laymen, or defrocked charlatans.
And
or
honestly,
defrocked
George,
bishops, excuse me. Yeah.
Hastily ordained would be preferable to never being ordained at all.
No, never being ordained at all.
He
exactly.
does this thing, and not only does he do this thing, and I think it's important to say too that one of the basic tenets of the Orthodox faith is that we have bishops and they walk together, and that's how our church moves. Again, it's an organic body. And Bartholomew took the unusual stance that he doesn't need his brother bishops. He doesn't need their permission to do what he feels is in his best interest, frankly, and can take the church in that direction. And of course, he'll tell everybody he's speaking for all of us. Yeah. But that wasn't even an Orthodox move.
No, it wasn't. So, it was unilateral and it was arrogant.
It was unilateral and arrogant. And when his brother bishops tried to say, okay, this terrible thing has happened, we asked you not to do it, and they unilaterally said, please don't do this way. Let's talk about this. Of course, Bartholomew knew that if they talked about it, it would never happen. So he does it anyway. And then some were saying, as they should, okay, this awful thing has happened. It'd be like your kid coming home and said, I crashed the car, or I did something. And the first thing you're concerned about is with their safety, right?
Of course, absolutely.
So if they're safe, then you can move from there. Well, to be safe, and we're talking about these people too. Many of them were misled, just as we were misled. They wanted a canonical church. They live and breathe among nationalists who think Russia's bad, and they haven't been able or wanted to go to the Russian church. So this was promoted as, okay, you're now canonical, but that is not true.
No,
because not only did he do this terrible thing, he failed to ordain them, and now they're ordaining others.
That's an excellent point.
Excellent point. Yeah. It's like it's like nobody was safe. It's like the car crash, yet your kid is bleeding all over the floor. He doesn't address those things. He doesn't care.
Well, and picking up along that line, he said everybody will get over it. The Russians will get over it. The rest of the church will get over it. The Slavs will get over it because of their deep-seated inferiority complex. And we Greeks are supreme in the church. And eventually they're going to get over it. It's like an abusive husband who, tells his abused wife, here's $50, go buy yourself a dress or something like that. Very dismissive, okay, and not loving in any way, shape, manner, or form. And of course, the irony is nobody's gotten over it.
No.
I mean, he thought that eventually they'd go alphabetical order, all the churches, first the Greek-speaking churches, then the other churches would all meet in synod, in their respective synods, and say, all those in favor of recognizing Domenko as Metropolitan of Kiev, this new schismatic church is canonical, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Nay. The fact of the matter is, first, the Church of Greece went, and the Church of Greece didn't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. Okay? They literally didn't. And in a very half-assed, it took months.
Right.
And in a very half-assed, pardon my French, sort of way, they kind of they just inserted into the diptychs. And then the foreign minister of the Church of Greece went to Alexandria and literally twisted, or figuratively twisted, the arm of the patriarch there, Theodore, I believe his name is, and said, look, buddy, we give you money, and you do what we say. And he went ahead and did it himself, unilaterally, without even meeting with his synod.
And so I don't think Bartholomew was concerned with us at all.
Well, no.
The laity. He didn't care if we got over it, as long as his bishops got over it and all the other bishops got over it, then he'd be a happy camper, right? Yeah. But every time he would do this, whether it was Greece and the Archbishop Theodore,
the Patriarch of Alexandria,
yes,
Africa.
That was one of our good guys.
He was one of the good guys.
And so it hurt again. It was another cut.
There's a personal layer to this, because Theodore, when he was a metropolitan, was stationed in Ukraine, and he was very close to the canonical, to the Ukrainian people, but also to the canonical church there. And everybody thought that at the end of the day, he'd say to Patriarch Bartholomew, no, I'm not going to do it, because these were my friends. Well, he stabbed his friends in the back. Now we go to the third church, which again, we're talking about Cyprus. So if this report from Romfea is correct, and we have no reason to doubt it, then the Archbishop of Cyprus, uncanonically, surreptitiously, scurrilously, signed his name to the thing that says that Domenko is a legitimate hierarch of a legitimate church. And he didn't go through his synod. Now, how do we know he didn't go through his synod? Because one of the members of his synod, one of the most famous members of his synod, was there, and he didn't even know about it.
No.
Okay? So we have to assume.
This isn't the first time it's happened either, George. Do you remember several months ago, there was something, again, with this ordering of the names, and people were saying, well, that's such a little thing. So it's interesting, because he's not even really good at what he does. He tried to shove it, in their face without them knowing about it, so that they'd sign off, because it would be too embarrassing to walk out. But he walked out.
No, who?
Athanasius.
Oh, he did? Okay.
No, we're just talking about this is.
Oh, are we talking about the time he just now did, or earlier?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No. Last time, no. I don't know. I don't think he was there last time.
Right. Exactly. Although during the Cretan Robber Council, several of the bishops who did attend, some of the bishops, like Eurythos Vlachos, he kind of walked out, or he would lock himself in his room so he wouldn't be a party to it. Anyway, that's a story for a different day. However, it does goes to show the unilateral neo-papal ideology that the present Patriarch of Constantinople feels that he has, that he can go ahead and, recognize this church as autocephalous and that church as autocephalous, but not that church, and do it just on his own volition without meeting in council.
That's right. Well, he not only does he not want to meet in council, he is basically, he has an interesting way. When he's going to make a move or do something, he sort of floats the idea.
Yeah.
So we've got Metropolitan Emmanuel, right, from France. he's on record saying, if you have a problem with this, and kind of waving the canonical tomos for the Russian church in the air, saying, anything could just go away, and it to me, it's a threat.
Bulgarian Stalin. Excuse me.
Okay. What is? This
so anyway,
stuff.
excuse me. The thing is, what His All Holiness believed, that we would all get along with it and go along with it and accept it, hasn't happened.
No.
And it hasn't happened not because of any personal animus that exists between, for instance, Kirill and him, or between the Greeks and the Slavs, or anything like this. It's because it is so uncanonical. It is so unorthodox. I mean, to simply go into another patriarchate's diocese or archdiocese, which is what Ukraine was, and say, okay, now you're back to me, and in a couple of months, after I get the right, when things are right, I'm going to give you autocephaly because I have the right to do it because you're part of my patriarchate now. Well, that's like a man going into another man's house, raping his wife, and saying, "Okay, I'm now in charge here."
And when you think about how bizarre it is, is the fact that we have Metropolitan Nofri. Yeah. He says, you were Metropolitan of
and you're canonical.
Ukraine, Kiev and all Ukraine. And I'm going to recognize you. Recognize my God, who also has the same title.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And that's why it's not going to get any better. So now we've had 3 churches, Greece, Africa, and Cyprus, who in a more or less very haphazard, surreptitious fashion recognized the schismatic church of Ukraine as autocephalous. And are any other churches going to go along? I doubt it. Now, NATO.
Wait a minute. Just wait a minute.
All right.
Well, first of all, one more thing needs to be said about this whole Ukrainian thing is it wasn't an initiative that came from within the church. Oh, no.
No,
they get the request from Poroshenko, who has a political agenda, who wants to be reelected, who wants to get all the nationals to come together under this faux church so that he can accomplish his personal objectives. Yeah. It also happens with respect to rumors of money changing hands.
Yes.
And a powerful country like ours, our State Department, wanting to bring NATO into the area and cordon off Russia. This is not a church move. This is not something that was done for the betterment of the church. Clearly, it isn't better for the church, not even close. This was geopolitical. It was worldwide. Yeah. It's an embarrassment.
Well, it's also part of George Soros's color revolutions. There's been several color revolutions: Ukraine, Armenia, Georgia, and the purpose is to destabilize or to surround Russia with NATO troops and stuff like that, to destabilize these nations, which at the same time, these nations are being secularized. They're Orthodox nations for the most part, and they're being to go along with abortion, gay rights, the whole secularist agenda, which for many of these people, they're it's anathema to them.
Yeah, it's scandalizing to them.
It's totally scandalizing.
And when people talk about the Russian government in the context of this, it's appropriate in the sense that a lot of this, what happened, was in reaction to the Russian government. It wasn't about the church at all. But what is about the church is the fact that Russia is part of the canonical church.
It is.
I don't care what their country does, or will do.
Yeah.
I only care about the church and the fact that they have an administrator over their country. Has that been on the whole time?
No, it hadn't. Just now. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, the fact that they have a leader that is sympathetic to the church, I'm grateful for.
Yes.
Because any support that the church can get is extremely welcome. But it wouldn't matter, George, if it was Russia. It wouldn't matter who they were or where they were. If they were part of the canonical church, that's the side I'm going to be on.
Well, and what happened in Ukraine is not canonical. Now, we don't want to belabor the point. We know this. Everybody knows it. But I will say this, and I can't stress this enough, because it was done in such an uncanonical manner, with uncanonical, defrocked and or never ordained charlatans, the fruits that have emanated from it are bitter.
They're bitter. And it's the tree that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
So we have this situation, and there is no getting over it because it is bearing fruit, as we are seeing. I would not be entirely surprised if we had another Ukraine, almost right here in my country where I live.
I know.
My church, our jurisdictions. This is terrifying because that's the problem with this stuff, and that's why I think the Orthodox Church for 2,000 years they know what's true, they know what's right. It's not that hard. You just got to follow the church. Is it really that difficult, George?
No, it's not. Well, Jesus said, "Pick up your cross and follow me," or "Take up your cross and follow me." Right. But he also said, "My yoke is light, my burden is easy." So the thing is, by doing these uncanonical things, we're hopelessly complicating things that don't need to be. I mean, you have mountains and you have molehills, and unfortunately, we're taking these molehills and we're making them into mountains, and the mountains lead to schism. And
the bedfellows. You see, what is it? Birds of a feather flock together. Okay, so we have these people that did this thing in Ukraine that had nothing to do with the church, and they've made friends now. They're friends with the State Department. And so now we have a group of bishops during a pandemic that do not know what to do except follow a secular government because they don't know how to follow the church anymore. I mean, now we've introduced all of these people who have no idea. They have no, what is it, from Roma? What's that name? Phronima. They have none of that. And yet they are the ones who are dictating what we are going to do in the church. And in this pandemic, it's understandable. It hits you, you just got to go be reactive because you don't know what you're dealing with. Right. How many months are we into? 6, 7, 8 months?
8 months. I think it started in February. So.
And still no word from the bishops on what is a criteria to keep it the way it is, and only, it's like water trickling through a rusted pipe in terms of opening it up. We personally know people that are leaving, and this is horrifying. It is a mess. It is one big mess, and yet it is a scandal. And yet, I just want to make this point, and I'll shut up. These people, these things that they're doing, this is not the church. No. People ask me, well, why don't you just go to a different church? Honey, I don't know about you, but where would I go? I'm Orthodox. Yeah. My point is that the church exists beyond these people that have made some very, very bad decisions, and I hold on to that. And when people are critical, I get defensive because it's not about wanting to say this bishop's bad, this bishop's good. Not about that at all. Or the GOA because they're Greek or bad. I'm married a Greek, by the way. I'm very happy with Greeks. So we're good on that front. It is not about that. It is the fact that the church is close to me as if I was their parent. If you come anywhere near my children, I would stand between you and them, no question, no hesitation. I feel that way about the church. I love the church that much, and I am going to stand up for her. Well, it has nothing to do with the people.
As we all should. The church is our mother. Okay. Now the Catholics have this locution called the Holy Mother Church. We don't have it, but we do have it. We feel it. Okay. Yeah. And the church is our mother, and the scandal of Ukraine, which is not being resolved by any stretch of the imagination. No. And it continues to bear bitter fruit, is pretty much caused a schism internationally. It hasn't yet in America per se, but
But it will be
It
because
may,
there's no
it may.
way of bringing all the jurisdictions
Yeah,
together.
we're-
So they're talking about in one
yeah.
jurisdiction, oh, yippee, our patriarch says we can build the church from the ground up. And you
Yeah.
wonder, well, who is that patriarch
Yeah.
to say we? And who are the we?
Yeah.
So they're going to build the church from the ground up in this country. And not only is it not going to unify this country, it's going to create another layer of disunity.
Yes,
Do you
totally.
think Antioch can be on board? No. Do you think any of the World Court can be on board?
No.
It's basically cut out
Yeah.
the other jurisdictions. That's not unity.
And even within the Greek Archdiocese, Gail and I have several contacts. There are several priests we talk to, and they're scandalized.
and they
they're
are.
just absolutely scandalized. And I don't want to go any further than that because I just don't. But
the point is,
they are in
the same place we are.
Yeah.
Only it obviously is considerably more. They're talking. Some of them have been in the parishes 15, 20 years beyond that. That people under them are looking for their guidance, and there's not a lot they can do at this point. Now, that's not saying it's going to always continue to be this way. This is God's church.
It is.
God can be trusted.
Yeah.
I have seen him come in where you think no solution is possible, and he comes in and things fall into place. I fully expect that to happen in this case. But that's not to say that we don't have a right to say to anyone who's listening, we are scandalized by this.
Of course.
We have not gotten over it. Every day it actually gets worse
It-
because
it
of
is-
the bitter fruit,
yeah,
but
it
because
is.
we can't get over it. We're not going to get over it.
Gail and I pray for our priests and we pray for our bishops. Okay. And we're enjoined to pray for them.
Yes.
As St. Paul said, pray for those who have been placed over you.
Right.
Okay. That doesn't mean that and yes, we are rational sheep, but we're rational sheep. That doesn't mean we're dumb sheep who go, who are there to pray, pay, and obey. And if we see bishops stepping out of line or doing things wrong, and we've been doing this now for several years on the blog, and there are other blogs, again, we're not being critics. We're just being alarmed. You could say we're being alarmists. Okay, that's a valid criticism of us, but we're alarmed because we have a right to be alarmed. For instance, let's say they unite all the churches in America. Let's just say, which I think is becoming unlikely. Okay, well, none of the churches outside of the GOA recognize the Patriarchate of Kiev, the new schismatic church. So how are we going to be able to commune with our Greek brothers? And it's not settled among a lot of the priests of the GOA, by the way, but they have no choice in the matter for now. How can we be in communion? I mean, it's the same thing, and it brings us back to Metropolitan Athanasius of Limassol. He walked out of liturgy. He did not have Eucharistic fellowship with his brother bishops who were there. He did not lay his hands on this new bishop.
Right.
And I don't know what he's going to do tomorrow.
Maybe he doesn't even know.
Yeah,
but he knew.
But he couldn't be
it took
there.
a couple of minutes to sink in, and I've got to believe a lot of things were going through his head, and he wanted to send a message to us. It may come to that.
Yeah.
We may need to get up and walk out. I don't even know what that means
Yeah.
yet. I'm not going to walk away from the church ever, but I may have to reimagine what it looks like.
Yeah,
I will.
Yeah.
I will do whatever God leads me to do through these men that I know that can be trusted, and our holy fathers. Wasn't it Elder Paisios that said, there's going to come a day where you're not going to be able to trust your church leaders.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to look at the Holy Fathers.
I believe it was Elder Paisius is now St. Paisius.
St. Paisius, yes, exactly.
In the 90s, 94, he said there will come a time in the near future where the bishops will lock the churches.
There you go.
And I don't know if that's apocryphal. I mean, I've heard it from more than one source, and I've seen it and I've read it too. So, this is, the time for prayer, fasting, repentance, all the way around, not just us, the laymen, but our bishops too, is upon us. And, as Gail said, this is God's church. He's going to take care of it. He will. And the Greeks have a saying, "O Theos navare to heritu," may the Lord put his hand on it. And I think he will. And as Father Josiah Trenham has said one time to you, I believe, God allows bad things to happen so that good men will arise.
And we have to look for those.
And we have to look for those good men. And on that point, I think we're going to say,
adieu.
Adieu.
Okay.
All righty.
Thank you for listening to us today. We appreciate it.
And look forward to a Zoom call in the near future.
We're going to be doing that. We're just trying this out. I mean, obviously, this is new for both of us.
Anyway.
But, we'd like to include you because we're not going to have time to write books. There's going to come a day, and it's maybe already upon us, where we're going to have to be able to communicate like this.
Yes, exactly.
And then be comfortable with it. So this is kind of out of my comfort zone, but trying to get there.
She's a peach, though, isn't she? Just a total peach.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
Anyway.
Okay, we're done.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.